We begin our show tonight by taking you along on a mountain goat capture. Now, since 1960, 232 of these shaggy beasts have been captured from healthy populations and transplanted into new areas. But it's not an easy operation. In fact, it can prove to be extremely tedious and frustrating. It takes a solid month of preparation to plan the complicated logistics involved in moving people and equipment to the secluded habitat of the mountain goat, this 7,000-foot ridge on the edge of the Mallard-Larkin Wilderness in north-central Idaho. It's called Black Mountain, a rocky, barren peak that's capped by a Forest Service lookout, home to the trapping crew for the next week. Everything necessary to the operation is slung up the slope by a Jet Ranger helicopter. Sleeping bags, food, water, and the tools of the trade, equipment like these wooden crates designed for transporting captured goats.
So we'll set these boxes up over here, and then we'll have them all ready for if we get any goats.
After several trips slinging gear, the ship lands and the rest of the captured crew disembarks. An eerie silence descends as the helicopter pulls away. The dreamy sense of isolation is deepened by the encroaching fog and a cold, steady rain, creating less than ideal conditions for capturing goats. But the crew's already in action, setting up the big rectangular contraptions called clover traps.
We set the salt in the back of the trap, and the goats have been salted here for 20, 30 years, something like that, so they're pretty used to it. And so they'll come in and come into the trap to get to the salt. And we kind of have a hook hooked up to this drop gate and then a trigger wire. And when they get inside, we pull the trigger and the gate drops and we got them.
It's a simple design, and that simplicity makes it almost foolproof. Monofilament line is strung from the gate of each trap to the lookout. This is the trigger.
We're putting rocks around the edges, and we'll wire the trap down to the rocks and try to secure it because, yeah, otherwise they'd carry it off.
Somehow the efforts of the biologists invoke visions of the classic cartoon where the coyote is always trying to design elaborate ways to trap the roadrunner.
That ought to work, think.
But unlike the frustrated coyote of cartoon fame, the Idaho Department of Fish and Game has a remarkable track record catching and transplanting mountain goats. Since 1960, 41 successful capture and transplant operations have been conducted. The goal? To supplement those goat populations that appear to be on the decline and to establish new populations in historic habitat where the mountain goats have disappeared, like the Seven Devils area above Hell's Canyon.
People moved in and miners were around. A lot of folks were on the river. Probably the population just got overhunted. And it was quite a long time where there were no goats, and then we transplanted goats into there, and now there's about 120 to 140 goats in that population now.
Every 4 to 6 years, aerial surveys are flown over the craggy mountain ranges of Idaho to evaluate the health and density of our wild goat populations. Here on Black Mountain, goats have always been plentiful. The most recent surveys reporting approximately 200 mountain goats in the vicinity, establishing it as a population that can comfortably support a capture and transplanting operation.
It's the nanny with the kid there.
There's instant tension in the lookout when goats are sighted the first afternoon. They appear wary. The nanny is clearly not interested in approaching the salt once she realizes the lookout is occupied. But the kid peeks curiously at probably its first sight of humans and then disappears.
A little wishy-washy.
The appearance of goats so soon after setting the traps is a good sign, and hopes are high in the lookout that a capture may be imminent. But even the best intentions of man are still subject to the whims of nature. That was to be the only sighting of mountain goats for 3 long, slow days. By evening, the clouds have thickened, shrouding the lookout in a dense fog. A cold, steady drizzle further isolates the peak. Somewhere, the mountain goats have taken cover from the foul weather more suited to early spring than these long days of summer.
Special recipe, Black Mountain pancakes.
If possible, the next morning the weather is even worse. The lookout is swallowed in a fog bank and visibility is down to virtually zero. There's little to do but wait out the weather.
Well, this has been nasty weather. In years past, it seems like we've been blessed with a lot of warm, sunny weather and blue skies, but we've had a lot of rain, wind, fog, clouds, some close calls with thunderstorms. During sunny weather, they tend to get out and move a lot more.
For the next 2 days, clouds roll in and out in great waves. In between rainstorms, the crew searches the surrounding slopes for sign of goats. But either they are well hidden or right beneath the peak, tucked into the rugged cliffside below. The days are long and time passes slowly. Then finally, the fourth day dawns bright and sunny. The clouds have settled into the valleys, freeing the mountain to bask in sunshine for the first time since the crew's arrival. The view from 7,000 feet is spectacular, stretching from the Mallard-Larkin wilderness all the way to Montana. Big sky country indeed. The warmth has nudged the goats into activity, and soon they appear, seeking the salt their bodies crave. For a few moments, the traps are forgotten. The biologists indulge in the rare sight of these unusual creatures moving effortlessly through the rocks and crevices.
They're just fun to watch. It's fun to watch their habits. They're just unlike any other animal, you know. They're up against the rocks all the time, and you just wonder how they can move through those rocks so quietly and without falling and so forth. One thing that goats have is on their hooves, they have a pad that spreads out a little bit, which helps them to cling onto the rocks a little better than what an elk or a deer would. You can't take her, because she's got a kid.
More goats have joined the first two, some still wrapped in their thick winter coats. Others are already slicked off, displaying the powerful chest and leg muscles that make them so well suited for this mountain habitat. They circle the peak tentatively, eyeing the salt in the strange mesh trap.
I'd probably take about any of these other three. And this first one's pretty big.
The ideal captures are goats that are small enough to handle, but old enough to be on their own. Nannies with kids are automatically eliminated, as well as the larger females and big billies. Not only are the massive mature goats difficult to deal with, the fact that they are older means they have fewer years left to reproduce and populate a new area.
Yeah, a little kid standing down here. Here comes another one.
More and more goats appear. One is instantly dubbed Crazy Horns for the odd angle of its headgear.
I'd take all of them, but Crazy Horns and maybe the one on the rock.
The goats drift around to the side, heading towards the back where the biologists have a third trap. The atmosphere in the lookout is thick with tension, and conversation is limited to urgent whispers.
Here we go, here we go. Come on, swing around. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's going in, it's going in.
A display of dominance disrupts the process as one goat challenges another, chasing him away from the trap. But the others remain tempted by the scent of salt.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. Take him, George. Got it.
The crew is instantly in action, grabbing a crude wooden shield as they dash out to the trap. The goat is frantic. It tries to escape, crashing against the sides. Both horns and hooves are dangerous, and it's critical that one of the trap crew gets a solid hold on the tossing head. The goat bucks and squirms, attempting to break out, and it takes the efforts of the whole crew to subdue it. Sections of garden hose are put in place to protect the scientists from the sharp horns, and a blindfold helps calm the goat. Then the work begins of processing the animal.
I'm writing down information that we collect on it, put down the ear tag number. We've got the radio number down right here already. We're going to take some blood, and then that'll be about it. Is it 67, George?
It's a 3-year-old female. The blood will be sent to a lab for disease testing and genetic work. And the radio collar will help biologists keep track of how well she adapts to her new surroundings at the release site. But for now, she'll be temporarily housed in this wooden crate.
I got her head. I got her head.
I don't have anything yet.
It's a struggle, but eventually she's loaded into the crate.
Okay, once you guys mess with this, I'll go get the other hand. Okay.
A somewhat battered and bruised trapping crew carries the crate down the snowy slope away from the trap site. They set it down carefully under a tree where she will be protected from the sun, then return uphill to reset the trap for the next unwary goat.
Got it? Okay. Right here.
Now, if you think that was rough, imagine the same process in the fog, in the dark, and on a cliff. Sound a little dicey? But when we come back, we'll show you what it's like to catch a mountain goat in the gloom of the night. One of the advantages of the big clover traps is that no drugs are necessary to subdue the animal. This usually means a dramatically better survival rate for captured wildlife. But once in a while, an individual animal is lost. Usually it's due to stress. The animal just reacts poorly to the whole situation. And occasionally, but rarely, the captured creature is injured in the trapping process. Until a necropsy is performed, we won't know the reason. But the goat you just saw captured was found dead the following morning. It was a subdued crew the next day. The trapping operation seemed to be plagued with bad luck. First, the lousy weather and lack of goats, and then the loss of a captured animal. Wildlife biologists realize that losing individual animals is part of the process, but it's still tough. It's necessary to remember that without the transplant operations, there would not be the strong goat populations we have scattered throughout our state today. A blanket of cloud cover keeps the goats from moving around, and there are no sightings near the traps. The only highlight of the day is a gorgeous sunset. The helicopter is scheduled to return the next morning, and it looks as though the whole operation has been a wash. Fog follows the sunset, rolling in with the darkness, and then, under the cover of night, another chance. It's a lone goat. The lamps are quickly dimmed, and once again, tension pervades the lookout.
Oh, he's smaller than I thought. Easy.
It's not as large as the first goat and appears a bit less agitated. A distinct advantage in this trap perched so closely to the edge of the cliff. But even though this young female is smaller, it's still a struggle. The process is the same. The first priority is to secure her flailing hooves and then get some protection on the sharp horns. The biologists struggle in the dark to put on the blindfold, ear tag, and the radio collar. Blood is taken, and then the challenge to move her over the rocky cliff into the crate. The next morning, the goats are slung out first. The carcass of the dead goat will be sent to the Wildlife Health Laboratory in Caldwell for a necropsy. The goat captured in the night will be transported by truck and then slung by helicopter to a place called Squaw Creek, above the Salmon River in the Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness. There, it will join up with 8 mountain goats released previously at the same site to pioneer a new population.
Right up in that saddle, beyond those of trees right here.
Where when recreationists and other folks go into that area, it's nice for them to see it like it really was before man really got here. And when some of those wildlife populations are missing, they really can't get the full experience. So for me, it's real satisfying to put those populations back in there so that people can see them, you know, and just see what the wilderness and the country was like 100 years ago.
Okay, you get out of the way and I'll let her feet go. Get out of the way of the horns. Okay.